Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are watching this. Friends and family of the internet, we have to chat, folks. We're going to be talking about over 100 cremated human remains found in the desert. Yes, you heard me right. We're going to talk about a true crime story that is so much deeper than mainstream media wants you to know. And it happened here in Louisiana. And we're even going to talk about an outbreak and a subsequent death from none other than, you're going to have to wait, watch, and find out. Welcome back to Starkey Farmstead, friends and family, and watchers on the wall. So let's get into this, guys. I've got three separate stories spanning our amazing nation, but I want to start with these cremated remains. So if you've watched me for any time, you know that I am seriously concerned about all these missing children, right? Over 300,000 missing children in the United States that came across that border under the Biden administration. And here we are, current day, we've got 100 plus cremated remains. And who finds them? Who's investigating? The Bureau of Land Management. All right. So this is outside of Las Vegas, which, I mean, come on, folks. Legalized prostitution. Can you say human trafficking? Listen how disturbing this is, and let's talk about it.
Of cremated remains. Federal officials who oversee this land tell me that they are in fact human, but who they belong to remains a mystery. The only thing that we can find connecting them to a human being are zip ties and remnants of an urn. More than 100 piles of cremated remains.
You guys heard that too, right? Zip ties. So we can assume that these bodies had their hands and feet zip tied when they were cremated. So does that sound like a normal cremation? Does that sound like that possibly came from a moratorium? I mean, let's be honest, right? We have talked about the Stephen King book and the movie, The Institute, where they just cremated those children after, using them psychically, draining them. So I'm just asking, I'm only asking questions, and aren't we allowed to do that, AKA Candace Owens? So I'm just asking, by the way, if you are not part of our team and our family here, hit the like button, drop down in comments, tell me who you are, where you are watching from, and subscribe. If you'd like to get our monthly newsletter and Zoom with me and everybody else that's amazing on this channel, all you have to do is look in the top of comments, add your email address with your donation, because YouTube does not pay me, and we'll get you hooked up.
Dot the Nevada desert, just a few miles from Searchlight, a town itself home to just a few hundred. You can see it best from the air, each dot representing a human being who someone left here. Mounds and mounds of remains abandoned right off a dirt road, where a person came across them several weeks ago and notified authorities. Since then, the Bureau of Land Management working to figure out just who's responsible.
Our loved ones are so connected to us, and paying tribute is really the final opportunity we have to memorialize a life.
Kurt Sof is a funeral director in Utah. We interviewed him recently for a different investigation involving a shuttered funeral home. While spreading ashes on federal land is not a crime, failing to dignify the dead is. Nevada law requires funeral operators protect the dignity of all remains.
What we truly strive to do is care for the living while we get the dead to where they need to go.
Dozens, though, ending here, enduring the rain and the sun, in a possible attempt to never be found. I did check with the Clark County coroner, who obviously oversees the county. They say because this is federal land, they have nothing to do with this case. However, the Bureau of Land Management does want to hear from anybody who may know who these belong to.
Don't you guys just find it odd that mainstream media went to, this is all up and up, obviously, a crematorium. These are legally U.S. citizens. This is all perfect. Let me explain to you how I know this is most likely connected to organized crime. They dumped the ashes where? On federal land. where local jurisdictions had no authority. This happens quite frequently when you're dealing with Native American land, right? I've done so many videos talking about how organized crime is taking over, how illegal alien gangs are taking over tribal lands. They're, over there cooking meth, they're human trafficking, they're kidnapping and stealing Native American women left and right. And there's nothing that the state or the federal can do because why? It's tribal land. So the criminals know the law just probably better than most of us law abiding citizens. Now, this next story hits very close to home because, well, I was just in St. Tammany Parish with my husband who has a brain aneurysm. That's where we go to get medical care. And I remember this story when it first happened. There was a 6-year-old child that was hit on his bike. He was riding a scooter, supposedly in his driveway, but we're going to discuss that. And the child was hit in broad daylight by a vehicle that did not stop. Now, immediately, the police, within like just a little bit of time, same day, arrested a gentleman, questioned him, his pregnant wife, and they had their 6-year-old daughter with them. So let's get into this.
Tonight on an investigation into a deadly Slidell hit and run that left a 6-year-old boy dead earlier this month. The man who was originally accused in the boy's death is no longer charged with his death. On August 13th, the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office arrested Cody Bodette and accused him of hitting the child who was riding his scooter in his driveway on North Shore Lane. Today, the Sheriff's Office withdrew the vehicular homicide and hit and run charges against Bodette because new evidence showed a second vehicle was possibly involved. Bodette is still facing charges separate from the hit and run, including DWI and driving with a suspended license.
Okay, let me tell you why this upsets me so much. First off, the police they are definitely using the local news to continue to smear campaign this gentleman. When you heard that mainstream media outlet put out that little, 2-minute update, it made it sound like, he didn't cause the child to die, but there was a second vehicle involved. And somehow the way they put it forth, it made it sound like he may have had something to do with even the second vehicle. Folks, let me tell you what I found. You true crime people are going to love this. St. Tammany ended up arresting a woman for these charges. Now, she is not booked on vehicular homicide, not the same charges that they gave Cody Bodette, right? They did not book her on the same charges. And when I originally found this, it says deputies arrested 35-year-old Cody Michael Bodette, charging him with vehicular homicide and felony hit and run. The Ramirez family had moved to Slidell from North Carolina in December 2023. Jeremiah was their only son, a student of Cypress Cove Elementary, remembered as joyful and full of life. Neighbors say speeding has been a long problem in the area, calling for safety measures like speed bumps. Now, here is the thing I want you guys to really kind of get into your heart. First off, in 2010, this area had only 4.7 Hispanics. In 2022, that jumped up to 6.4, right? Over a 2% increase. Why are you talking about this, Sam? Because it's very important. All right. The lady that originally, and we're going to get to her name and who she is and how she is connected to the St. Tammany Police Department. This was from a mechanic in Slidell. It says The Mechanic is what it's titled. Jeremiah Ramirez. This is the name that will forever be a part of my life and many others. He and his family are the first reason I'm writing this statement. Cody Bodette, his children and family are the second reason I'm writing this statement. The children, the family members, and the community of Connie Noel Estes are the third. My name is Corey Dunn, and I am the mechanic. The hit and run that tragically took the life of an innocent 6-year-old boy on August 13th of 2025 has been the local social media main topic of conversation for 2 weeks. The sheer number of assumptions, lies, misinformation, and misunderstandings I've seen have absolutely blown my mind. I was going to wait until next week to write this before I traveled to Virginia to attend my son and now daughter-in-law's wedding this weekend, and wasn't going to spend time on this while I'm here. Since I've been here, I've received a few calls asking if I'm the mechanic. I've been told that my name has come up because a few people know that I've become Noel's mechanic for a number of years. Before any more false information is posted or any possible backlash from that information is directed at me, I'm making this post now. I understand that families involved in the communities are looking for answers. I do not have answers concerning the St. Tammany Sheriff's Department in any capacity other than my contact with them, and will not comment or speculate on answers concerning the St. Tammany Sheriff's Department. They have been nothing less than 100% professional with me. I will give you the answers that are relevant to my involvement in this tragedy. What I write in this statement are facts. So the woman who actually hit this child, after she hit the child, the 6-year-old little boy, she drove her vehicle to a local mechanic shop, one that, well, she had been using for years, right? So this is the mechanic that turned the vehicle over to the sheriff's department and actually got the original man that was arrested for the crime released. But this is so deep. So pay attention, you guys. Listen to this. Because these are facts, I don't believe the statement has any impact on the ability to prosecute Noel or hinder any current ongoing investigation. What do I mean when I stated any possible backlash on me? I do not know what Cody's previous legal issues or issues with law enforcement were. However, whatever he's dealt with was posted about, brought up in conversation, and is labeled as the reason he was the horrible person that could have committed such a horrible crime. It only took one person to mention his past, and it lit up like a wildfire. It didn't matter how many people posted the positive about who he is now. The father, the mentor, the coach, etc. The negativity was already assumed and directed at him and his family. The shock, pain, and anger must be directed at someone, right? I have a past. I haven't always made the best life choices. There was a period of time in my life when I struggled with addiction, and some of the choices I made landed me exactly where I belonged, handcuffed in the back of a St. Tammany Sheriff's vehicle and headed to the Covington jail. I actually did at one time have accusations pointed at me that were in fact false, and I experienced firsthand what it felt like. I made poor decisions. I went to jail. I paid restitutions and made amends to those I hurt. Now, if you know anything about me, I'm going to stop here real quick. I, too, have done my time in a maximum security prison. I have made my amends to society, and I spend every day of my life advocating for the truth. I think this is why this story bothers me so very much, because there's so many facets to it. First off, you have a child that's riding a scooter without an adult outside on a street that has been known for speeders, and only his sister to watch him, which in itself is negligence. But nobody talks about that because the child died, and obviously the parents are very upset. It was a hit and run. So there's so many things that get overlooked. But that was the very first thing I was thinking of, is this was so avoidable in the sense, had a parent, an adult, been with a child. Why are parents allowing their children to ride things like scooters and play basketball where balls roll? And what do children do when balls run, friends and family? They chase them, much like puppies. I've seen it time and time again. It is heartbreaking, but again, it very much could have been avoided. There are even these really cool, my niece has one because she's one of those parents that do worry about those things. Net, like fences, you put it in the ground and you pull the netting across your driveway, and it's like 4 foot tall. It's basically see-through, but it's very thick. And if your child is playing ball or riding their bicycle, they will hit that net before they go into the road. It's very inexpensive, maybe $60, well worth your child's life. but you don't see people deploying these. I looked at where this child was hit, and for the car to have come into the driveway to hit the child, they would have immediately went into the ditch, right? Because the driveway has a culvert going under it. So when they say the child was hit in his own driveway, what I actually think they mean is he probably went out into the road to make a U-turn to go back up into his yard and was hit right at the edge. Is that okay? No, because it was a hit and run. What bothers me is that the entirety of the world decided and convicted Cody Bodette because he had a past. And I have lived this and I deal with it on a daily basis. How quick everyone is to imagine that, yes, you could do that. It doesn't matter that Samantha has been 5+ years clean and sober. As soon as somebody wants to throw something at me, they just dig back in my past and go, look, I've got evidence, right? And that's what they did with Cody. And I'm really proud of this gentleman who wrote this article, The Mechanic. So let's keep going because it gets good. Basically, he goes on to say on August 13th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m., Noelle Estes, that is who actually hit the little boy, texts the shop asking me to call her. I called her at 6:38 p.m. She asked me if I could come by her work. She needed some advice. I went to her work on my way home and was asked about performing a repair on her vehicle sunroof and repairing a front bumper that was taped up. She said she hit a mailbox. I told her we can give her an estimate for the sunroof repair. However, we are not a body shop, so we could not replace the bumper. She asked me to get an estimate to replace the bracket that holds the bumper on. She dropped her vehicle off at the shop on August 14th, 2025. By this time, I had heard of the hit and run and reflecting on the total conversation she had with me the night before and looking at the damage, something did not add up. It was not uncommon for Noelle to call me when she had wrecked vehicles in the past. So obviously this was somebody who already had a really terrible driving record and was very unsafe behind the wheel. All right. Having a gut feeling is one thing. I didn't want to make a knee-jerk reaction. Cody had already been arrested for the hit and run, so I assumed there would be evidence supporting his arrest. Looking at her vehicle in the sunlight, I didn't see much that I felt was strong enough for me to possibly ruin someone's credibility by calling the sheriff's department. He actually goes to the victim's house twice to see what color the scooter was, to speak to the daughter who was outside when her little brother was hit. That is how I know there was no parents outside. Because he said, I actually went to the victim's house twice. The first time to ask what color the scooter was, and I was told sky blue. The second time was to show a picture of the vehicle that I had in my possession, right? It was the woman's vehicle, to his sister, see if she recognized it. She was not sure. I wasn't going to let the vehicle leave until I knew it was or wasn't involved. To clarify, officers from the St. Tammany Sheriff's Department saw the vehicle parked on the street, as I thought they would if they were looking for it. One afternoon, an officer came in, asked questions about when the vehicle came in, as if they were still investigating the accident. There was no time that I called the sheriff's department and they refused to listen to me or respond. That never happened. While they were looking at the vehicle, I went outside, told one of the officers I needed to speak to him and give him all the information that I had. All right, so that happens, right? He said he put the vehicle up on a rack, and what he saw underneath the vehicle was evidence enough for him, the mechanic, to know that she was involved in some form of hitting a person. So you can only imagine what was under the vehicle. And the fact that the sunroof needed to be replaced, you guys understand what I'm saying. Like this was horrific, what she did to this child. Anyway, it goes on to say, I've been sick to my stomach. With that being said, I'm so grateful she texted me. I'm so grateful I got involved and the vehicle wasn't scrubbed of evidence. I'm grateful Cody is out of jail and the correct murderer is in the place. I pray Jeremiah's family can one day find some kind of peace. This is the young boy. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's really horrific. Anyway, let me continue to tell you what else I've heard. It says, it's insane that they arrested the wrong dude and pinned a murder charge on him Well, somebody in the sheriff's department was sleeping with the actual murders. So the allegations are that some sheriff's deputy or a person in the sheriff's department is sleeping with the actual murder of this child.
Showing what is believed to be the SUV belonging to the
See,
woman
that's
now
the
charged
SUV.
in a hit-and-run crash that killed a 6-year-old boy. You can see the vehicle driving down the street about a minute after the fatal crash. The man.
Okay, so I'm assuming this is a minute. There's the vehicle in the top right corner. This is 1 minute after the original crash, right? So I want you to notice how these driveways are done. This is the same, basically the same neighborhood. Look at the ditch. For that child to have been on his scooter anywhere inside of where this car is parked to that trash can and mailbox, she would have hit all of this to hit the child. That is why I'm telling you, they're saying the child was in his driveway, but chances are he was on the edge of his driveway. There was no adult present, just his big sister. This is not okay. You guys, I see it, and I know people are going to tell me, are you just being racist, Samantha? I see it a lot with immigrants. They leave the siblings to watch their children. They do not understand the laws in the country that they've come to stay in or how risky it is in this country. And for some reason in their countries and in their culture, it's okay to let an 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old watch another kid. We don't allow that in America. And the reason we don't is this.
Who was initially arrested in the case is now free after spending 2 weeks in jail.
He spoke exclusively to Maddie Kurth about how he's working to further clear his name.
I was crucified in every way humanly possible by everybody.
Nearly 3 weeks ago, Cody Bodette found himself handcuffed in the back of a St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office cruiser.
You just could hear my 6-year-old screaming at the top of her lungs in, tears from, fear.
Did they tell you what they were picking you up for?
Had no idea what was going on for a few hours.
Unbeknownst to him, St. Tammany investigators made Bodette the prime suspect in the hit-and-run death of 6-year-old Jeremiah Ramirez. A driver killed the boy while deputies say he was riding his scooter in the driveway of his Slidell home around 6 p.m. August.
Okay, so again, and this does break my heart, folks. Look at this driveway back here. You see the ditch right here? If he would have been in this driveway and someone veered into the driveway to hit him, they would have ended up in this ditch. He was not in his driveway. He was in that road.
13th. Bodette says he told deputies when they pulled him over in his Chevy Suburban SUV that he was in the area around the time of the crash for his daughter's cheer meeting at a nearby high school. Deputies booked him with vehicular homicide, hit-and-run driving, and reckless operation of a motor vehicle related to the child's death.
They were 100% sure they had their guy.
It really does make me wonder how many other people out there are in a situation like ours.
Bodette's sister, Jordan Rolston, says she never believed the deputies and went out to the neighborhood where Jeremiah was killed to start digging. She says she found a house with a clear view of the street and a security camera that caught a silver Nissan Armada exit the neighborhood minutes after the crash. Rolston said the Armada had serious front-end damage, and she says the homeowner who gave her the video of the Armada told her at the time that deputies...
Okay, you guys, look at this neighborhood again. Look at the driveways closely.
And she says the homeowner who gave her the video of the Armada told her at the time that deputies never knocked on their door.
St. Tammany Parish Sheriff was going to convict my brother off of no evidence they had, when all they had to do was go attempt to get the evidence by looking for more camera footage or anything, really.
Stressful, depressing, emotional, every word you can think of. It was a nightmare.
Rolston got in touch with Dallas McClanahan, an ex-cop turned private investigator in Slidell. McClanahan says he took her evidence and tried to bring it to the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office, but he says investigators weren't interested. Do you often get told, I'm not interested in talking to you?
Very, very rare. Usually they'll sit down and talk to me. Only time is if there's some kind of conflict of interest.
Joe Raspani, Fox 8's legal analyst, is representing Beaudette as his defense attorney in this case.
If you look at the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office in a light most favorable to them, they're lazy, they're negligent, and they didn't care.
The St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office won't answer any of our questions about this case. But in a news release, Sheriff Randy Smith said once new evidence came to light, his investigators moved swiftly to redirect the investigation and identify the correct suspect. Raspani says after the sheriff's office denied meeting with the private investigator, he then took the evidence directly to District Attorney Colin Sims.
I've reached out to law enforcement dozens and dozens of times. Sometimes they'll listen to me, sometimes they won't. That's fine. But in this particular case, I saw they were not listening to anybody, so I went directly to the DA's office. They acted appropriately. We went and got a bond hearing set as quickly as we could.
Last Friday, Sims ultimately refused all charges against Beaudette that were related to the child's death.
He was in jail for 2 weeks for something he didn't do.
Hours after the DA refused the charges, deputies announced the arrest of Connie Noel Estes for hit and run causing death and obstruction of justice. A judge set a bond of $1 million.
Those 2 weeks felt like 20 years to me and my family.
And don't forget, do not forget, there are allegations that she was in a sexual relationship with somebody already at the St. Tammany Police Department. Now, I want you to hear some other things going on with St. Tammany Police Department. St. Tammany Parish citizens will likely have to pay another large settlement when this goes to court. We'll probably never know how much because those are usually sealed. At least that's the pattern. This also makes any reasonable person question their safety when coming into contact with deputies at this agency. There's a pattern of misconduct from the Strain administration, including Army veteran Chris Cambry was assaulted by George Goodadowry in Pearl River while at his home. He was not armed and he did not resist in any way. Goodadowry, I guess is how you say that, was not charged in the matter. This was not his first incident of that sort, since he was also severely assaulted Shane Gates during the Strain administration. Jerry Rogers was arrested after commenting on social media that the detectives investigating the Nanette Crintel murder were stone-cold rookies. They took him to jail, strip searched him to ensure that he was adequately humiliated. Attorney William Most represented him, and a sizable unreported settlement was reached. It is unclear whether any of the officers involved were held accountable. The case remains unsolved, and representatives of the DA's office have stated that the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office botched the investigation. It should be noted that at least one of the officers deposed for the trial was involved when, according to deputies, Randy Smith left Sal and Judy's while intoxicated to drive Nanette Crintel to another location. No official report was made, but several deputies corroborated with that information. On April 8, 2023, Seth Clare was driving to his home in Folsom when Franklin Police Department officer Leonard Holloway was returning to St. Tammany Parish with his deputy wife after attending a party where he had been drinking and had a blood alcohol level of 0.094. He crossed the line, struck Clare's vehicle head-on. The report written by the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office deputies didn't mention the empty beer can in Holloway's car. Unfortunately, Clare also had family that were interested in helping him, and they obtained footage from a convenience store that exonerated him as well. Unfortunately for Clare, the Holloways had very little assets, so a civil case was not successful. There are obviously other ones where people are too frightened to file a report. There are incidents where high-ranking officers threatened to jail waitresses if they didn't perform sex acts, incidents where deputies refused to take reports of illegal acts committed by the politically powerful, and more. Small-town politics.
You know, now that the air has been cleared and they've arrested a different person, has anybody apologized or spoken to you?
Of course not. I can't imagine that they will admit or hold themselves accountable for anything.
After weeks of his arrest circulating online,
My name will always be associated with that original mugshot and the defamation that came with that.
Cody Bodette says he wants justice for himself and for 6-year-old Jeremiah.
I just hope that, especially with a crime of this magnitude, that a little more investigating and police work goes into the charges before making an arrest.
Maddie Kurth, Fox 8 Local First.
In addition to the now refused charges related to the child's death, deputies also booked Bodette with DWI, driving with a suspended license, child endangerment, and no child restraint. The St. Tammany Sheriff's Office says those charges remain.
Oil.
Henderson single mom Brianne Barnard told me she was already racked with guilt for.
Okay. All right, guys, last story. I told you guys a while back about valley fever. I did a whole video on it. You just go back to my playlist and find it. I'll even link it in description of this video along with all this information that I'm sharing here. Let me explain to you guys something. Valley fever is directly correlated, okay, to tilling your soil. I wrote a book with a friend of mine. She co-authored with me, Leslie. It's called Growing Under a Poisoned Sky. You can get this at Kindle, Barnes & Nobles, Walmart. I'll link it in the top if you'd like to donate to our channel. This will be linked in that same section, top comment pinned. Growing Under a Poisoned Sky tells you why you should never till the soil. Arizona is a very dusty place, California, all of that. And when you stir up the soil, you are releasing very specific types of viruses, bacteria, and fungi. Listen to this.
With us tonight, whenever there is a major dust storm, it raises a lot of concerns, and they're justified, about valley fever, as all of that bacteria and spores from the soil is released and lifted into the air.
Well, now a West Valley mother is sharing her own story of loss to help raise awareness about the dangers of valley fever.
12 News journalist Jade Cunningham sat down with her today and heard the story of how the deadly infection took her son's life.
It's been 3 years since Cherie Scott lost her son. The heartache, though, just as strong as the day it happened.
Everyone was so excited to be in the midst of Richard because of the energy he brought, because he was so loving, caring, and upbeat. So to have all that taken because of a misdiagnosis, it's not fair.
At the end of 2020, Scott says the 31-year-old entrepreneur began feeling ill. A doctor said it was muscle spasms.
By November, December, he was still struggling. So we, again, made another trip back to the doctor, who also, again, identified when they pressed lightly on his back, they stated, yeah, this is just muscle spasm. You'll be fine.
Trusting the doctors, they went home.
He started feeling a little sluggish then, like he was really tired, fatigued. He started losing a lot of weight. He was struggling to get up and down the stairs.
By January, Richard wasn't improving.
This time he's going through night sweats.
By February,
as a mother,
he was at his worst.
You want to do all you can to protect your children. I picked my son up, carried him to my car, and headed off to another medical facility. One of the hardest moments was having my son say, "Mom, what's going on? Am I going to die?"
They were told he had cancer and was then taken to a hospital where after a few days he went on life support. Scott asked a new medical team to look at the case and finally got a proper diagnosis.
When I showed up to the hospital is when I was told, "I am so sorry, your son is suffering from valley fever, disseminated cocci. There is nothing that we can do to save him."
After 10 days in the hospital, Scott made the tough decision to say goodbye.
And just that quick, my grief turned into anger. Because of the misdiagnosis, I thought we were dealing with muscle spasm.
That anger now turning to purpose, to raise awareness about this common, yet not often talked about, infection.
And breathing in these spores, the first thing it does is attack your lungs. Every organ in my son's body shut down. This could have all been prevented had we had proper awareness.
Awareness, so others learn.
We have so many young children, elementary, middle school, high school, college students, that could have their life turned upside down with the quickness.
And so other families, she says, can hopefully get answers quicker to avoid having to tell a loved one goodbye. Jay Cunningham, 12 News.
Valley fever can be detected by a blood test and is easier to treat if it's caught early.
It is important that if you have any questions.
So let's really talk about valley fever because like I say, a mother's grief. I did a video on this the other day. It can be transformative. And if applied in the right area with the right pressure, she can move mountains with that pain. She can have legislation created. She can protect someone else's child. She can do what she couldn't do for her own. And it is a beautiful thing if applied correctly. Now, this woman is correct. Why didn't they even think about it? He lives in Arizona. There are dust storms. Like, why did doctors not even consider that? The biggest thing is the tilling. Did you see all the nice manicured rows of food growing? Folks, I talk about that extensively in this book, Growing Under a Poisoned Sky. The Great Dust Bowl was directly correlated to our tillage of the soil. We cannot continue to farm food the way we're doing it and not reap very, very harsh consequences. It's heartbreaking, but it's true. I want to show you guys the little boy that I did the video on earlier. I knew you wouldn't be able to see it with the background, so I waited. He was hit August 13th. This is the girl that hit him. She posted on Facebook on August 14th, date night. Look at her grinning. No concern at all that an innocent man. Here she is singing. She posted a video of her doing karaoke with a Jesus bobblehead, I guess to her boyfriend or somebody. She had just killed a little boy, and another man was sitting in jail for it. Yeah. Just saying, friends and family. The people you love, you don't always know them. You'd be amazed what people will do to cover up an accident, to not get in trouble. I started looking and I was shocked at the amount of hit and runs just in St. Tammany Parish in the past several years. Just recently, there was another hit and run. Of course, it was an illegal alien. He hit a kid getting off a school bus. Yeah, hit him and then left. I'm going to tell you right now, our country is not stronger, nor is it better with diversification. Segregated communities isn't going to help us make this country great again. We have to come together. Communities, we have to stand up for each other. I wasn't sure when I wanted to talk about this because I need to talk to my sheriff about it first, but it looks like there may even be human trafficking going on in my community. And just recently, you can Google this, in Denham Springs, Denham Springs, Springs, Louisiana, there were 3 people arrested for human trafficking illegals on their way to like Georgia with them. One of them was a Mexican national, 2 of them obviously illegal aliens in this country. That's what we're dealing with. Humans just being moved around like cattle for sex, for slavery work, for all of it. It's heartbreaking. And then we have situations like this where our own police departments, because somebody in the police department is got a little girlfriend that they like, they didn't want to give her up. So they just arrest and accuse the wrong man of a hit and run. They didn't even check for doorbell evidence. Thank God for Cody Badette's sister. I mean that. Thank God for his sister. Or he would have most definitely been found guilty for that, even though there was really no damage to his vehicle. So like, comment, subscribe. Love you guys so much. Talk to you later today because I do have some other stuff I want to do, but it's kind of early on Saturday. I've got things I've got to finish around here. You guys be safe and be blessed.